17-month investigation into the most destructive fire in Colorado history comes to an end. Today, investigators announced their findings into what caused the Marshall Fire.
The Boulder County Sheriff's Office says it was two fires that turned into one. People living near El Dorado Drive started a fire and buried it with coals and embers. And then a week later, those heavy winds that day reignited it. Investigators say the second fire was caused by sparks from a downed Xcel energy power line. The DA's office says no criminal charges will be filed.
That fire burned 6,000 acres, destroyed 1,000 homes and businesses, and killed 2 people.
Denver 7's Danielle Kreuter has a closer look at one of the causes of that fire.
This burn pile, lit 6 days before the Marshall Fire, would eventually lead to the most destructive wildfire in state history. Firefighters were called out back then, but felt confident that the resident would put out the fire properly with a large water source on the property and then bury the rest. When the winds picked up that day, it uncovered the previously buried fire on this property and caused it to spread. Now, investigators later contacted the resident who acknowledged they never used water to put out that original fire. It's a hard thing to hear for homeowners who lost everything.
I couldn't help but sit there thinking, how could they not have done everything possible to put out the fire?
Burying the fire is not always enough. It's really difficult to understand how hard it will be to control any type of fire, not just a wildland fire, but even a structure fire and winds like that.
Lieutenant Trevor Leland with the Colorado Springs Fire Department knows exactly how difficult it can be. Crews struggled as wind gusts up to 90 miles per hour blew embers during the Waldo Canyon fire in 2012.
That ember travels well past where those resources are, but we have to get more resources to respond farther out, and so it makes it very hard to keep up with.
Rules for residential controlled burns like this one vary by jurisdiction, but he says there is a clear way to know when any fire is put out properly.
Using water, thoroughly stirring that material around, making sure that it's out before you leave there is key. If you're going to cover it with dirt, make sure again that you can put your hands on all of that material. Make sure that it's cooled, to the touch before you leave it.
In Boulder, I'm Danielle Kreuter, Denver 7.
And on the heels of today's announcement, 24 Marshall Fire victims have joined a mass action lawsuit against Xcel Energy. The lawsuit alleges that Xcel's power lines and equipment caused the Marshall Fire, which led to significant harm. The victims say they want accountability for Xcel's role in the origin of the Marshall Fire. Xcel released a statement. It says, "We strongly disagree with any suggestion that Xcel Energy's power lines caused that second ignition, which according to the report started 80 to 100 feet away from Xcel's power line in an area with underground coal fire activity."
Now, the last 17 months have been incredibly difficult for Marshall Fire victims, and they still have a long road ahead.
Now, we want to take a moment to reflect on how communities in Boulder County have, and beyond really, have come together and find hope and find perseverance. Now, thanks to your generosity, you helped raise and distribute just over $700,000. Those Denver 7 Gives donations were quickly put to use. The Tarvis family got an SUV. A couple and their 5 children lost their home and business and 3 cars in that fire.
Boulder photography store Mike's Camera stepped up to help a family restore photos that were damaged in the fire. Melissa Lockman had 1,500 damaged photos restored at a discounted price.
And even children stepped in to help. 9-year-old Libby Latham collected hundreds of stuffed animals for the children who had lost theirs, along with $4,000 too.
And you can find more stories of hope and updates on the rebuilding process in Boulder County, and you'll find it all on denver7.com/Marshall Fire.